Yandere Simulator has had a, well, tumultuous development time. There is a lot of drama surrounding this game, and I'm going to touch on some of it, but if you want more, Kappa Kaiju can do a far better job than I, and look way better doing it, both literally and in terms of production value. After 7 years of development, players finally got some sort of actual story mode with the release of 1980s mode a couple months ago now. And, to be honest, it kinda blows. Not that I had high expectations, but I can still criticize it. Let's get into the meat of this video. I'll start by giving some background on this game for the uninitiated. Yandere Simulator is, as the name suggests, a game where you play as a yandere, a character archetype in anime where a girl falls into extreme love with a boy, using anything, including violence, to get him. The game got its start on 4chan in 2014, which should have been the warning to everyone that it was going to be a train wreck, because 4chan has made like one good game in its existence, and nothing else. The game got really popular when I was in middle school. For reference, I have completed my first semester of college. The reason the game got popular is because several big YouTubers, including Markiplier, played it. Then, for a little while, it was the internet's favorite game, like between Five Nights at Freddy's and Cuphead. And frankly, it was one that I was quite interested in as a 13-year-old. And I do thank the game. It introduced me to the YouTuber Cub Scouts, who now carries the game through the end of its relevancy. The primary objective of the game is to eliminate the girl who is into your senpai, and in 1980s mode, we get to do that 10 times. Must be great, right? Well, let's see. It was pretty interesting. The game started off a little weird for me. When I entered the tutorial, my camera was spinning around for some reason, and it took me a minute to figure out why. It turns out the game was picking up input from my Flight Simulator joystick, which I had plugged in and threw in my desk drawer. The tutorial itself is fine, and the trail system works pretty well, but the one thing that's wrong with it is when you pick up a task from a student, the trail system does not lead you to where that task is, which in this mode is always the library, so it doesn't matter as much, but in future, the tasks will be in different places, so that needs to be ironed out. That is, of course, if he doesn't want his players to run around like headless chickens. And then after the task, it doesn't tell you where the student is so you can finish the task. I'm a new player to this mode, and I don't know who the hell these people are, or even their routines yet. I haven't even seen enough of them to really remember what they look like. Back on topic though. I do the tutorial, and I kill the girl. Whatever, who cares? This part of the game is alright in my opinion from a design point. Oh, one thing at the end of the tutorial though. This one girl calls you out like, "Yo, Ryoba, you took a knife, that's sus as hell," and your character is like, "Nah bro, I had a good reason." And then the other girl's voice acting suddenly cuts off. Look.
Hey, Ryoba-chan? I saw you take a knife out of the cooking club. Why did you do that?
Oh, that knife actually belonged in the home ec room. I was just putting it back where it belonged.
So I started off on the actual first rival by changing around my settings. I knew from my past experience that this game used to run terribly, but this mode actually runs alright on my mid-range gaming PC, specs on screen now. It sits above 60 FPS and stays completely playable the whole time, even when around a lot of people. Though it does stutter every once in a while, which is a bit annoying, but it really didn't take away from my experience all that much. So my plan to eliminate the first rival was simple. I'd get her to follow me to a secluded area and kill her. But unbeknownst to me, she won't follow you unless you have a reputation that is at least 10. Makes sense, I guess, otherwise the game'd be way too easy. So I went and did a bunch of tasks for people, which led me to realizing that issue with trails. I also went and joined the art club, because I knew from my past watching videos that if you wear the painter's smock, you won't look suspicious with blood on you. Unfortunately, when I first tried to take her out on Monday, my reputation was a 9, so I couldn't get her to follow me. Never fear, on Tuesday after class I had 10 reputation and managed to get her in the middle of nowhere behind the school. I disposed of everything and the police had no idea. On to the next rival. Well, I would have been, except the game broke. After my first little play session, I didn't have much motivation to play more outside of making this video. So it's now been a few weeks, and I decided to play it again. The game didn't launch. Now, this may have been an issue on my end, but when I went to reinstall it, the reinstall failed, and frankly, I didn't have enough motivation to reinstall everything again, and I had already written everything for the first rival in this script and even made the thumbnail, so I'm not going to stop making this video. So instead, I'm going to pivot this video and talk about what I learned from the first rival and why I think the game sucks, and some other problems that I have with the game, and why ultimately I think it'll fail. First of all, Yandere Dev wants this game to be like some cool cross of Hitman and Persona. And while I haven't played Persona and I've only watched Hitman on YouTube, this game isn't nearly as cool or fun from a design standpoint as Hitman, and it's not even close to as deep as Persona. I generally don't even know what the first rival's name was. I don't even know what any characters' names were other than my own. And I got through one of the 10 rivals like that. And honestly, killing her and getting away with it was super easy. There wasn't really a challenge, and yes, that was just the first rival, but like I said, I watched Cub Scouts play this mode, and they're all like that. They have some slight quirks, sure, but they're bland, boring, and forgettable. Let's be real here, the only reason this mode came out is so that Yandere Dev could get some attention back on his game, since most people stopped caring a while ago when it took him 6 years to put one rival into the main game, and his income relies on people caring enough to support him on Patreon. From what I saw in Cub Scouts video, the opening interactions with Senpai are basically copy-pasted for all 10 1980s mode rivals. This mode was lazy. And even worse, it's been over a year and a half since the first rival of the main game was released, and the second one isn't even out yet, after it took 6 years to get the first rival in the main game. This game will never get completed. The main thing I learned from the first rival is that I have no interest in playing the game further. It was boring. And not only that, the tutorial at the start, while I said it was alright, it's still far from good. The only reason I knew how to do literally anything is because I had been at worst loosely following the game from the start. This game will not succeed if you can't bring in new players, and frankly, a game like this isn't going to get positive press. For example, you can take panty shots of what appear to be underage girls as a currency. Sure, the developer says they're all 18 in the game, but he isn't very smart since he's publicly stated his real thoughts on the matter. This mechanic not being a 1980s mode was a blessing, even though I only played one rival. Yeah, Yandere Dev isn't really a good person. Like, in the past he did some shitty stuff, like want to murder his parents or write really, really bad fanfiction that you should not look up unless you're over 18. But since he's been working on the game, the kind of person he is has come to the limelight. He's a weeb, obviously, there's nothing wrong with that, but he has interesting views on women. Then again, he was on 4chan, so what do you expect? But one of my favorite things about Yandere Dev happened last year. Like everyone with some internet presence these days, including me, Yandere Dev has a Discord. In this Discord, he has a lot of yes-men, ass-kissing mods. One of these mods suffers from dissociative identity disorder, a real mental health condition where a person has multiple personality states. How did Yandere Dev react to this? A. Respected them despite their condition? B. Thought it was weird but let them do their own thing? Or C. Banned them and denounced DID? If you picked C, you were correct. Just look at this man. What an upstanding gentleman. The guy is straight up creepy as well. I mean, obviously, including a mechanic in your game where you take panty shots of schoolgirls is incredibly fucked up to begin with. He also wanted to make an inventory screen that included your character opening her skirt, showing her undergarments. Nice. He also gets super defensive when people call him out on his BS. Just look. This is a man in his 30s, sexualizing teenage girls. A true upstanding citizen. There's also a pretty good chance he owns a love doll, which, I'm not gonna kink shame or anything, but come on man, it only adds to what people think about you. To add to his level of creepy, 2 of the planned rivals for the main game are going to be full-blown adults, and another one of them is going to be Senpai's little sister. Like, Yandere Dev tries to excuse the latter as being non-romantic, but he knows exactly what he's doing. That sort of thing has a market, and it's incredibly creepy. The two adult rivals, one of which is a teacher and the other a school nurse, are incredibly fucked up for this reason. They're adults in a position of power. Just reverse the genders if you want, and imagine how that would not fly at all in any video game with mainstream appeal. That is not okay. At all. My favorite thing about Yandere Dev is how he treats other developers that take inspiration from him, which you probably shouldn't after everything you've heard, but hey, some people do. There's the more well-known story about the game Love Letter, where Yandere Dev attacked the dev, and through a poor choice of words, it looked as though he threatened to commit No Longer Alive. But there's a less-known story about a game called Watashi no Mono. Yandere Dev has called both of these developers conmen. Competition is always good. In another universe, with a better developer than Yandere Dev, it likely would have driven this game forward. But no, instead he cries and complains that people make a better game than him. This game will fail. It's not going to release. But if by some miracle it does, there is zero chance that it succeeds. I mean, if the game starts to gain any traction in the mainstream, Yandere Dev would just get cancelled. And even past that, the game's gonna get slammed by critics and players alike. It's really not a well-designed game, and I had literally no fun playing it. There's an issue with Yandere games in my opinion. It's hard for me to root for the protagonists of these stories because they are literally killing innocent people. Like, I know it's just a game, but I have a conscience. Even in an FPS game, at least the people are either shooting back or are literally evil. In this game, you're the evil one. That doesn't have a lot of mainstream appeal unless it's done in a really cool way. In the case of Yandere Simulator, it's not cool at all. The game sucks. Well, that's all for me. Do not bring any harassment towards Yandere Dev or other people in the community because of this. He may be a shitty person, but he's still a person, and we should treat him with respect. See you later, and leave a sub if you enjoyed.